There's a epidemic in our culture today. A lot of people are complaining about being tired, worn out, burned out. And they say it's because they're not able to sleep. Scientists tell us that the real issue isn't the length of sleep. The real issue is people are missing out on what's called REM sleep. That deep sleep, signified by rapid eye movement. If you don't get enough of that, you wake up feeling exhausted and tired. That seems to be what's happening to a lot of people. Tim Keller, writing on that, says that the real underlying issue is that so many of us lack REM soul rest. That is, we're not getting the deep kind of rest for our souls that we so desperately need. And that just leads then to all kinds of other restlessness and fatigue and feeling worn out in our lives. So how do you recover REM soul rest? How do you get deep rest? After all, if your soul is not resting, your body's not going to rest. Well, to answer that question, I want to take you to a story found in John's Gospel, the 5th chapter. Hope you'll read it later on. Jesus has returned to Jerusalem from being up in Galilee, and he ends up at a pool called Bethesda. And around this pool are all kinds of people who have needs. There are people with blindness. There are people who are struggling with needs for healing from various diseases. And then there are a lot of people there who are paralyzed, who are lame. One man in particular had been an invalid for about 38 years. And he's lying next to the pool. Now, why have all these people gathered by the pool? Well, there was a superstition in those days that an angel would come down on occasion and disturb the waters, and whoever got into the water first would be healed. And so everybody's there kind of looking for their miracle. Again, it was a superstition, not fact. And so you can imagine all these people there, and Jesus walks up to this man who's been an invalid for 38 years. And he says, "Do you want to be made well?" And the man says, "Yes, I desperately do, but there's nobody to put me in the water when it gets disturbed." And Jesus just looks at the man and says, "You've been healed. Pick up your mat and go home." And suddenly strength enters this man's body, enters this man's legs. And he picks up that mat and he starts to walk. Can you imagine the joy this guy had to have felt? As he's walking along, some of the Pharisees, the religious leaders of the day, see him walking, carrying his mat, and they stop him. You see, this happened on the Sabbath. And they had placed so many rules around the Sabbath that you couldn't really enjoy it anymore. God gave human beings a Sabbath so that we could withdraw from life, withdraw from work, enjoy God, and enjoy just resting. But they had ruined the Sabbath with all their rules. For instance, you could only walk 1,000 yards on the Sabbath. You couldn't carry anything on the Sabbath. Now, if the man had actually worn the mat, his sleeping mat, if he had placed it around his body, then it would have been legal for him to be walking with that mat as long as he didn't go more than 1,000 yards, unless there was food that had been placed someplace 1,000 yards away from his home. He could call that his second home. He could walk there and eat and then walk another 1,000 yards. So you get how ridiculous it was. They had really ruined the whole idea of rest. Well, one of the points of the story is that we're all searching for rest. This man, the invalid, represents those who are looking for their rest in all the wrong places, in false ideas. The Pharisees, they represent those who are looking for rest through religion, through success, through being good enough. And we meet people like that all the time. Each one of us leans toward one of those directions in our own lives, trying to find rest. In other words, there are people who are hoping that somehow through health and wealth kind of religion and gospel, they'll find rest for their souls. There are people who are out there who think that if they're successful enough, they'll find rest for their souls. There are those who believe if they're religious enough, they follow enough rules, dot the I's, cross the T's, they'll find rest for their souls. But it doesn't make them restful. Like the Pharisees, it makes them judgmental. Because if you're going to go by a point system, you've got to compete against others. You've got to judge others to feel better about yourself. And there are those who are hoping that they're going to find rest for their souls through sensuality, through partying, through the use of alcohol or other kinds of drugs, that somehow they'll be able to escape the stress of life. But in all these cases, we just end up tired, more exhausted than when we started. You see, here's the issue. Jesus is trying to teach us that rest for our souls is not found in the ways of the world. It's not found in playing the lottery. It's not found in miraculous healing. It's not found in success and climbing the corporate ladder. True rest is found in a relationship. It's found in a relationship with God through Jesus Christ. See, how does that bring rest to your soul? Well, listen, when you know that your past is forgiven and not counted against you ever again, when what you've done in the past is thrown as far as the east is from the west and remembered no more by God, that gives you rest. When you know that you're loved unconditionally, that your identity is not in what you do or what you accomplish, but in who you are as a child of God, that gives you rest. When you realize that despite all the hardships in this life and the suffering that you may face and go through, that there's an eternal home waiting for you in God's presence, that gives you rest. When you realize that life is not meaningless, that when you come into relationship with Christ, even your suffering serves a purpose to glorify God, to give you an opportunity to share the hope that you have found. It gives you rest. Yeah, deep rest. Soul rem. That's what Jesus promised. You see, he is the Sabbath. And when we encounter him, that's when we find our rest. That's why Jesus said in Matthew chapter 11, "Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, burdened." He said, "Give me your burdens and let me yoke up with you. Let me carry you through this life. And then you will find rest for your souls." Do you know that rest? Have you come to that place where you fully surrendered to Jesus? Where you've given him the past, the present, the future? Where you're letting him walk with you through this life, despite how hard this life might seem? He's there for you. He loves you. You've tried everything else. Why not rest in him? From the timeless Netiv and the Netiv Olam, the eternal pathway, I pray you'll find your rest today.